Hello, welcome to everyone joining us online in Decentraland on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We are live from Decentraland Art Week with another of our incredible daily Mesh tours with the artists and creators from the MESHfair 2024. I am absolutely delighted to have three, four. We've got Dev. He's going to come. We've got three right now, but four of the incredible people that are involved in MESHfair this year. So with us today, we have Anne from Office Impart, we have JaneDAO, we have Sabato, and we're going to have Dev joining us very shortly. It's going to be an informal tour again as we dive into Decentraland. So if you are following us online and you want to dive in world, we are live right now at 6161, but we're about to enter one of the MESHfair Cubes by one of our artists this year. There are 32 artists taking part in MESHfair, and each one of those artists has a special 12-meter by 12-meter floating cube in the metaverse in which we can explore and talk about their art, their process, and the work behind everything that you see in Decentraland right now for Decentraland Art Week. So I am going to very quickly allow our first artist to introduce himself. We are going to then jump into the next cube, which is going to be in world at 6660. If you're new to Decentraland, you will know that I can put the link in the chat box. So you can see in front of me, we have the Decentraland screen. We have the chat box going crazy with the people in world. I'm going to put in now the first link, which is to Sabato's box, which is at our first cube, which is 6660, and we're going to be jumping in there. And as we do so, Sabato, would you like to introduce yourself to the crowd watching us online and also in world? Sorry, Sabato, I think you're muted. Let me see if I can unmute.
Oh, am I
there
muted?
We go. No, you're not.
Am I muted now?
No? Can hear you perfectly now.
Okay. I kind of want to join virtually as well, but I'm getting like a horrible echo because of both streams being open. So I'm trying to figure out how to commute Decentraland.
If you go to the top of your tab in your browser, are you in client or browser?
I'm in the client.
Okay, client, I think you'll just have to mute. That is a good one. I'm not sure. If Kim can join in and message on how we mute the client, that would be amazing.
I can join via browser though, if that's easier.
So in the client, if you just go to your profile settings, there's an audio and you hit master sound off, it'll turn off the stream sound for you.
All right, hang on a second. Sorry for the troubleshooting. I'm a glitch artist. So this is like
no worries. Yeah,
part of my practice.
Yeah, within Decentraland, you can adjust any of the settings. So if you go to your profile, up at the top, you'll see a settings. There's audio settings, visual settings, etc. So within audio, if you change the master and you pull it down, then it won't play the sound of what's happening in world.
Okay.
And then you shouldn't hear the echo.
I'm just waiting for the client to reload for me.
Okay.
So I will be there in a second. But
that's so good.
In the meantime, I guess while it loads, my name is Sabato Visconti. I'm a Brazilian artist. I'm based in Western Massachusetts. My practice involves a lot of glitching, a lot of sort of like low poly game style. I love games and kind of like virtual worlds, and my practice also involves capybaras. As a Brazilian, I'm fond of them. They're they're one of those creatures that's really common in Brazil. So and it's there's a whole I don't know, they play such a big part of the environment and the wetlands there, and yeah, I do like to incorporate them in my work as a way just to kind of tell these stories from the global south, from the Anthropocene. All right, now I'm in Decentraland. I'm going to try to like get my audio down and join up with everyone virtually because I kind of want to, be in the space as well. And
while you join, I'm going to read the side of your box. So every single cube in MESHfair has got a little introduction written by the artist as to what to expect when they enter the cubes. So on Sabato's, it says Capybara Shelter. Capybara Shelter is a virtual sanctuary for displaced capybaras generated with photogrammetry, AI-generated, and glitch elements. So if you're joining us in World, we're going to be jumping in Cube 6660 right now. And if you're joining online, you'll see that I can teleport into the cube and be transported into the capybara sanctuary. Sabato, how's it going for you? Are you able
Good.
to?
I'm about to jump into the cube right now. Oh, let's see.
Awesome. So I can see Hupao hugging a capybara. We've got Canessa riding a capybara so far. We have a landscape in front of us of glitch and capybaras, and I think I can see Sabato joining us in there now. Can you describe for us, Sabato, what we're seeing here?
Yes, I can. So this space is a, as you mentioned, it's called the Capybara Shelter. It's sort of based. It's kind of like a mix of elements from both like the Brazilian wetlands as well as from New England. Oh, it's not letting me jump in for some reason. Let's see. But so the image textures on the background that you see on the walls and on the floors, those are AI generated. The tree, which is it was a photogrammetry model that I captured in Northampton, Massachusetts, of the kind of like the early fall foliage. And oh, I think I'm in.
I can see you. We
You can
just
see
walked
me?
past. Absolutely.
Nice. But yeah, so I took a photogrammetry model of this tree in Massachusetts, and I turned it into a low poly model, and I glitched it, and then did some shape key animations to the glitches to create this kind of like billowing organic kind of movement in the space. And then if you look into the on the sides, you'll see that there are these kind of glitched plants, and there's a skeleton of a woolly mammoth. And it's interesting because that skeleton, that was actually another photogrammetry piece that my little brother captured in 2021 at Miami Art Basel, and it's a Damien Hirst gilded woolly mammoth. I think the name of the piece is called "Gone but Not Forgotten," and it was on display back in 2021, and my little brother scanned it. So I kind of wanted to incorporate it here in the space to kind of bring like this tension of like, sort of like these like narratives of like, what would be like actual animals of actual wildlife, versus like something like Damien Hirst's practice, where it's very like extractive and very much based about this idea of just like taking animals out of their habitats and putting them in the gallery. The capybara shelter is kind of like the opposite movement. It's kind of taking these gallery spaces and like rewilding them and turning them into just natural spaces, reclaimed spaces. But of course, in that action, it's not, you can't always bring back like these sorts of paths. So, the new rewilding spaces are glitchy, and they have their imperfections and their liminalities. And that's what I think the space wants to explore.
Can I ask
absolutely.
why you choose this capybara animals? Because like it seems that in Europe it has kind of Instagram TikTok phenomenon at the moment. Everybody is doing memes with capybara and so on. So I was really I was just asking why. Maybe it has something to do with your culture and not like it's not so common in Europe.
Yeah, it's not common here in North America too. I think a lot of I've noticed that a lot of people from the US always, like, a lot of times they wonder, it's like, what is this animal? And then it's like a weird word, so they forget the word often. But yeah, it's interesting. It is part, I wouldn't say it's part of like Brazilian culture, but it's, a lot of Brazilian people consider them to be a pest or consider them to be food.
Okay.
And there's also like
we have this, and it's the raccoon, what we have here, and I think it's more or less the
exactly.
same. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like the guinea pigs in Peru too.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have like this internet meme kind of phenomenon because they're they're very chill animals. They are they're alloparental, so it's like they, it's kind of like all the capybara mothers raise the kids together in the village. It's kind of like a matriarchal society that they have. I think there's a lot of cool aspects about just how they socialize with other animals and how they survive. But also there's an interesting aspect because capybaras are a public health concern in Brazil. Baby capybaras are known to carry a parasite that causes spotted fever. And the reason I just got into capybaras is that when I visited my family back in 2019, and I had spent like about 20 years without being able to travel to Brazil because of immigration stuff. But once I was able to like go back and see my family, one of the first things I wanted to do when I went to my grandmother's town, like in rural São Paulo, was to see capybaras. And there was a little town near where my grandmother lived called Ipauçu, and they had a little town lake, and on that town lake was like 20 capybaras that just hung out there in the town. And then I went there, and at the time I had like a commission with Samsung to take pictures with a new cell phone. So I like brought the cell phone and took like probably like 1,000 photos of capybaras. And even today, I still use these photos for my works. But what happened with the town lake and the capybaras was that because of this thing with spotted fever, a few kids who went out to play with capybaras got the fever and died. And the town revolted, and they made this whole protest to like remove the capybaras and have them taken out of the town lake. And eventually they were. What the state did is that they because capybaras are protected animals, they they transfer them to a new sanctuary. All the capybaras that were infected with the parasite, they were euthanized. And then I think the remaining ones were like neutered or spaded, and they were transferred out to another place where they could live. But it was kind of a sad story, just because these capybaras, they're just vibing there in their space, but because of the decimation of the wetlands in Brazil, due to like deforestation, lumber and mining and all kinds of extraction, like these capybaras move into areas where humans live and spaces where humans live, and these interactions aren't always fun and memeable. Sometimes they carry parasites and people get sick. But I just found that story really compelling, and kind of one of those things that I just wanted to carry on with my work, just kind of bringing these capybaras everywhere and making little sanctuaries for them where they can like just relax and stuff. So
I love this idea of you bringing the capybara sanctuary into the virtual world and having that sense of rewilding, as you say, these virtual environments as well, and bringing these real world stories about ecosystems and our interaction with them within a virtual space. I think it's working so well in the virtual environment, especially as we see people interacting with your space here.
I know it's amazing, and it's funny because in my screen right now, like the installation isn't loading. I can see everyone standing around, but it's like transparent. But I hope people are taking pictures.
I'm taking pictures, absolutely.
Oh,
And we have
great.
Neo here as well, who's going to take some video for us. So
Oh,
we'll
that's
be able
awesome.
to send you all this. And I would love to bring you in now to explain a little bit about your background and how you got involved with MESHfair this year.
Yes,
Totally.
thank you. Thank you for having me or us. Yeah, I'm Anne from OFFICE IMPART. I'm running this gallery with my partner Johanna together, and we founded ourselves. It was in 2018, so 6 years ago, more or less now. And but we are in the art world really for nearly 20 years, I have to say. Yeah, and with the founding of our own gallery, we really thought about how can you bring what is a gallery today, and what all this new developments technology-wise also means for us to run a gallery, to run a company, also structure-wise, but also, of course, we have a strong focus on artists working with technology. And yeah, and so over the last year, we do a lot of projects and going also a little bit more first steps in the blockchain and crypto world, and doing shows about this, and working with artists there. And I think it's really interesting because so much new things happen also when, as I said, like we really know how the art world is running. And so for us, we really see a lot of potentials, a lot of exciting things what happening there. And of course, I believe really in that technology is one of the how to say, in the material of our time. So I think it's really, for me, these kind of artists working there, it's interesting, and we learn a lot, and we can give what we can give, and they teach us. So I really like this kind of partnership working with them, and and so I think it was how we came also to Mesh, and it was how to say, like it was really an exciting experience, I have to say. And thank you to Bay to introduce you to us how to run it. Also the selection process, I really liked how you all build it up, and it was really good to see that. Of course, always when artists working on concepts, it's a concept, but for me it was really interesting to see also the projects behind, you know, that you have all the connections to other works, to the website and so on. It was a really good process to do it and to select. It was fun to experience so much new things for me as well. And yeah, I think that's it.
And so for you as a gallerist, looking at how you explore these digital works, you explore them in virtual spaces and real spaces, where for you is the focus right now in presenting digital experience? Because I know this is a big question. We've been talking a lot of the galleries about these works existing in the metaverse, potentially coming into gallery spaces. How do you see this evolving for you as a practitioner?
Actually, for us, really the most important thing is at the moment building the bridges between the traditional world and the crypto world, I would say, or the digital world, because we really see there's still a gap. And so we really like to do shows that with artists, like they're really in our space, but have all components, and have also, of course, also just the digital components. And on the side, we are building up a little platform called Node, where we also, that it's also, again, a physical component in the gallery. So we have one huge screen always hanging in the gallery, where we present always one digital artwork at a time, and building up a little, change every 8 to 10 weeks, and building up this slowly, but wants to have, of course, in the end, a huge, conglomerate of really good digital artists. And it should show also the variety of digital art, that it's not generative or whatever. Like, it could be so much, and it's I think that's the whole thing about. And as you said, it's I think it's really important for us really to work with the artists to figure out how they wanted to present their work. And sometimes it stays just digital, cool, nice, but sometimes it's also have a nice components when you have a screen or you have a physical whatever. Like, it's so it could be everything, but for us or for me, it's really a good moment really to talk about, to think about together what could be the best way. And there are a lot.
It's so interesting you're saying that, building those bridges. I love at the moment that we're being broadcast across various media. We're in the metaverse,
Exactly.
We're in Decentraland. I think we've got about 500 people right now viewing as we're speaking. It's really, if you are viewing via LinkedIn, if you're viewing by Twitter, if you're viewing via YouTube, do try and join us in World as well if you can. You don't need a VR headset. We're at decentraland.org. Jump into World, and you can find us at the Decentraland Art Week Plaza. We're right now in Cube 6660 in Sabato's work, the Capybara Sanctuary. We're now going to jump again into an artist's work who is coming from that Web3 background. Jane, I would love to bring you in and kind of segue into this deep Web3 space that you're coming from. And we're going to jump from I'm sorry, capybara is not coming out of my mouth today. Capybara Sanctuary. We're going to jump from Capybara Sanctuary. Sabato, stay with us because I'd love to get your perspective on Jane's work as well. We're going to jump now into Cube 5860. So if you're with us in World and you've only just found us, open up the chat box, the chat window. Oh, big tip for anyone who is in World. If you press U on your keyboard, it gets rid of the UI for you, so you can take photographs. If you press S, you can actually, Mr. S, there we go. C, you can get a camera to kind of move around a lot more in the space to be able to take your photos. If you want to then get rid of the UI and put it back again, that's U. And if you want to start jumping around the cubes and following our tour, just hit the chat box down below, get into nearby, and I'm going to put the link in there. So we're going to be going to 5860, the cube by JaneDAO. And if you hit that link, we can just teleport directly there. So we're going to be jumping now into Spaces by JaneDAO. Jane, do you want to tell us what we're about to see?
Yeah, so my space is a cross between, well, it brings in themes from Alice in Wonderland and The Matrix. These are things that I use in my art, particularly. I like the messaging behind both stories, and kind of like the red pill, blue pill of, you know, getting out of your, to me, it's like getting out of your comfort zone, and going for a life that's harder and more real, much like the fantasy of being inside the Matrix or getting outside of the Matrix and not getting all the luxuries that the Matrix provides. So I kind of like think about it in the way that I like to approach life, and also these themes around my art. So part of when I was doing this installation was keeping in mind that I would really like it to potentially be a space, like a space in real world. So like very much digital. So a lot of the things you see are concepts that could be like the pills that you see, the blue pill, red pill next to the poster. You know, that can be strung up with like a string and life size, and you can take pictures and you can sit in the chair. That red chair is like that Morpheus chair where he had that conversation with Neo. And then like finding the rabbit, you'll find, well, if I challenge everyone to go find the rabbit and go take a picture with it, because it's hidden somewhere in this cube. But yeah, if you go up the stairs, you'll see another poster for the Cheshire cat, and as you go up, there'll be like Mad Hatter hats, and mushrooms and things, and the teacups on the ceiling. And so I try to take in these different themes of like having fun and play and meaning into this cube. And I had so much fun building this. I've never built anything in Decentraland before, and it was just really interesting to figure out how to make it interactive and fun, and bring in a lot of color, and think about, can this be made in like an actual building? Like, can this be fabricated? How would that look like? Can vinyl be used to create these textures? Can things be printed? Things like that, like lights and things like that. So everything in here, theoretically, I think can be made in a real space.
I love seeing the different interactions with the spaces. So you can see, I think that sense of fun and immersion is really transferring into the avatars of the community members in the space. There's a kind of instantaneous dance going on. Everyone started jumping across the surfaces and going up. We're going to go upstairs and explore the top space right now. But I love that sense of you creating this to also inhabit the real world too. How do you see that progressing for you next?
Like potentially pitching to places here in LA. Oh, I don't know who this mushroom person sitting down is. I love that. Is that a person?
That will be a person, yeah.
Oh, I love this avatar. It's so cute. You know, like pitching to there in LA, for example, there's a lot of pop-up art museums, so you can go take photos with it. I like something that you can really interact with it. You can touch it, you can listen to it, you can feel it. You can have fun like as an adult and play with color and these different objects. So yeah, potentially pitching and showing them what it could look like, and bringing in, yeah, that digital aspect to it. You can even see like on the floor of where everyone's standing is actually like a mini maze with like the card character from Alice in Wonderland reaching to the rabbit. And so I just like really thinking about the little things in this space. I think most people have found the rabbit. It's not too hidden.
Actually, we really had fun today in the lunch break with our employee, and we really took a dance, like, because it's the music, it makes such a good how to say, atmosphere. Like, it was really nice. It was I think it can just recommend to have a little pause and then do a little dance, and then we can go back to work, and it was really fun.
Yeah, if you look at the lyrics to this song, it's incredibly interesting and meaningful.
Okay, so this I didn't do. So what I have to, then I will check again.
Yeah.
Sabato, Dev, I'd love to bring you in here as well. Dev, have you managed to join us in World as well as in the StreamYard? I know you were having some Wi-Fi issues.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi is a little slow at the moment, so I'm not in World, but I am here on the video session.
That's great. And have you been in Jane's Cube before?
I had not, so it's definitely quite a party.
There is a party going on right now in Decentraland. If you are joining us right now, if you're watching this on YouTube, Twitter, or LinkedIn, you can join us in World at Decentraland, decentraland.org, which is part of Decentraland Art Week 2024. We are partying right now in the MESHfair Cube by JaneDAO. It is at Decentraland 5860, and we're talking live with 3 of the artists from MESHfair 2024, and also Anne from OFFICE IMPART, one of our amazing curators that has come together to select the artists for the show, the 32 artists that you see in the MESHfair Cubes that are really transforming these cubes into immersive experiences within the Decentraland virtual world. Sabato, can I get your response to this one? Like, you're in there with us.
Yeah, I am. I love the space. Like, I'm seeing, like, exploring other people's cubes. Like, I'm seeing the use of just like building levels, like top levels, and I'm just like, damn, I should have thought of that. Because it adds so many layers of like interaction and kind of like exploration. It's quite lovely. I love like the variety of textures and like the posters, and it's really fun.
It's funny you say that, because when I saw like the 1 levels and I would look at the ceiling, I'd be like, oh my God, there's so much space in here. Mine feels so constricting. And it's so interesting to jump into everyone's cubes, because I had no idea like what to expect. And some people took a more like artistic or architectural approach, or like simple. And I even love like the way that like you did the prompt. And so when I went into everyone's cubes, I'm like, oh yeah, there's just all of these are just so good. And I almost felt a little bit like insecure. And I think it's interesting, and maybe we could talk about that, like the artist journey of like comparing yourself to everyone, and like the constant crisis of confidence. At least that's what I have every day, and I face it. So I'm curious if that's something that you guys experience.
Oh, definitely, especially working with Blender. And I'm coming from a glitch art background, and like usually when I'm playing with 3D, like I just kind of let things go wild and amok, and like this was my first time doing something for Decentraland, and there's like a very specific pipeline in terms of like file size limitations and stuff. So having to work within those limitations was definitely a challenge, and I was definitely insecure at points. But the team is so wonderful at like kind of helping us get set up. Like I was really blown away by just how great everyone was with like, helping me with my triangle counts and stuff. So I definitely feel that insecurity, especially coming from like non-traditional 3D backgrounds. But seeing everyone's work, it's just like, it's amazing. It's just, I'm just happy to be part of it.
Do you have any methods to like boost yourself back up when you're like down, I guess?
I don't know. I guess I try to dissociate a little bit, yeah, it's like one of those things you got to not think about it, I think. And it's like, if you dwell on comparing yourself to everyone else, like it's like it's like Sisyphus, you're always like pushing the rock up a hill and you'll never get there. And I think it feels that way often in art, regardless of what you do. So, I just try to focus on the work, and, am I happy with the work I'm making? Like that's the question. And if I can at least say, yeah, it's tight, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder if I could bring Anne in, because in your curation of MESHfair, you had to review, I think we had about 80 applications for the 30 cubes. And I wonder if you could tell us about what you were looking for when you were looking through the work. What were you looking for in terms of thinking, yes, I want to see this in Decentraland?
Wow, this is a tough question. Like, of course, you have your preferences of works and artists you like, and other or directions or concepts. But I think what I liked also through the whole application process was the variety, because I think it's really about this. And it's actually, and I think you could see this also in the presentation now. I think this is a good thing about it. It's not just one direction, and it's not just about, you know, very conceptual stuff. It's like also, as yours, Jane, it's really about these emotional things. Some are more this direction, and this what I liked a lot. And personally, what we are looking for is always artists who are, how to say, pushing the boundaries a little bit and working, you know, I like it a lot when I have the feeling that the digital really makes sense, you know, that is really something what you can't do in real life, or what you can't, where somebody just using a technology because it's there. So I think it has to be a different level and a different, very certain reason to use technology to make it or bring it into a good art.
So it's so interesting.
I'm obsessed with Kamessa's teacup and this mushroom dancing and these cats dancing. I mean, like, everyone's, I don't know why my character's not dancing, but I'm like really loving the energy, and it like makes me smile. And I love that, like, something just on the computer that you're like brought together with all these different people, and it just kind of brings a little smile.
I think we've got mushrooms, we've got teapots, we've got someone who seems to have set up their own desert island on top of your poster as well, JaneDAO. I think you can see under the teacup there. So it's, I don't know if you can see this. There we go. There's a inflatable ring and a palm tree that's been installed, floating above your installation. I think that's one of the joys for me in producing immersive virtual worlds and installations like this, is that as soon as we start bringing community into these spaces, then we have a whole level of interaction, which I love the fact that we can have this kind of interaction in the metaverse right now. Kim, are you popping in to say something about this?
Our community always brings a vibe. So absolutely wanted to add that. But I did want to add a question that came up from the comments. I don't know if you saw it, Bae, but for the artists, people were kind of asking, what resources have you guys been using that kind of gave you the best ROI as you're building and trying to learn new spaces for someone that's not a native programmer, but you obviously have to do some programming to make this work. So just wanted to add that as a community question when you have time.
Thank you.
I did take a stab. I actually didn't code at all for this. So I, even though I do have an engineering background, I didn't need to use it. And I did not use Blender. I used C4D. That's what I used to make my art. And so that was a little bit difficult in terms of onboarding, because a lot of the videos online and tutorials are Blender related. But I'm blanking on the person who's been helping us in the Discord chat. But
KJ, massive shout out to KJ. Yeah.
She helps find like the comparables in C4D. And I actually, what I would do is get a object from Polypizza, and then I would put it into C4D. I'd add my textures, and I'd actually load it into the Decentraland builder and just put all my objects there and work within Decentraland, rather than make the cube all in C4D and then import it and maybe have issues. So the new builder that they made is pretty awesome and worked pretty seamless for like the things that I needed to use. And then fun little hacks is like for all these posters that you see, I used Canva. I put like the smallest dimension needed, which was 512 by 512, I think. And then Canva allows you to, well, it has like a ton of different assets, but it also allows you to download with an even more compressed file. So I would just create like planes and just add this texture onto it and really like create the idea that I wanted. And then the music is the song that I'm obsessed with that I already mentioned, but that was like the one smart object that I used.
I think we're going to jump. So I think we're going to continue this conversation in Dev's Cube. This has been a really party vibe atmosphere going on right now in Decentraland. If you are watching on Twitter, YouTube, or LinkedIn, join us in World. We started at 6161 Art Week Plaza, and we're now going to jump to our third cube in this tour. So this cube is by an artist called Dev Harlan, which we are excellently has joined us right now in Decentraland as well as on the stream. We're going to be jumping to Dev's Cube, which is 6066. So again, if you're new to Decentraland, you can see in your chat that I'm going to be putting the coordinate, which is 6066 here, and then that is going to be transformed into a link in which you can teleport to Dev's Cube. And we've got Kinessa saying in the chat here, yeah, KJ is awesomeness in human form. Absolutely. KJ is one of the most experienced 3D builders in Decentraland. She has created a lot of the how-to videos online that you can find on YouTube, and massive shout out to KJ. We're all kind of building on the shoulders of giants in Decentraland right now, and KJ is absolutely one of them. So we're going to switch now to 6066, and we're going to jump into a cube with a really, really different feel. And Dev, I wonder if you can tell us what we're going to experience here.
Sure. I mean, before you jump in, I can tell you that, this is much more an exercise in restraint, I think, in this cube. And I'm trying to create, an environment that does replicate this sort of, contemplative experience you might have in a museum or a gallery, where you're really just there to look at art objects and to consider them in detail. There's not a lot of, it's not an emphasis on like immersive experience as much as it is on a focus on objects and objectness.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love this environment. So we're going to jump in. We're going to go underneath the cube and teleport into Dev Harlan's cube. And can you explain the title for us? Because I know a lot of people have kind of jumped on this title as being very different to what we're experiencing through a virtual world.
Sure. A lot of the work, or rather every single work in this room, incorporates a screen in some way. And of course, I'm thinking a lot about screens as a medium for viewing art, right? As a not a replacement of, but a corollary to the canvas, right? So instead of looking at art on a canvas, we're looking at art on a screen. There's a lot of implications there. So one of the works is literally two screens against the wall, and it's playing some video work. Another work has a screen that's been disassembled. I've like chiseled the surface to kind of glitch and break the glass. And then, and let me backtrack and say that a lot of this work involves basically setting up and producing kind of things in the studio and then scanning them, doing 3D scans that are then brought into, a virtual environment where I'm mixing and composing different objects, 3D scan objects and things that are modeled by hand, etc. So for instance, there's the piece that's on the floor that's called Dell Crash Sites, that is basically a configuration that was done in the studio with like an old e-waste PC and some pieces of plaster sculptures that had been intentionally kind of broken and fragmented. I have this screen, this Dell old monitor that I disassembled and like chiseled the surface. And all those are combined and arranged, 3D scanned in situ, and then brought in pretty much as is. I mean, I've tried to create a very low poly mesh out of it that still is legible, so that you can really kind of still get the sense of this detail of this physical thing, that it's it's got a real world corollary. You're looking at a digital object that is a trace or a remnant of a real thing. And there's something interesting to me about that.
But is it built in the whole in real, or did you just take parts? We have parts in real and then put it just digital together.
A little bit of both. So again, the work with the Dell computer, the entire configuration there was put together in the studio and then just scanned exactly as is. So what you're seeing is exactly how it was set up in the studio. The other piece, of course, with the two big boulders were scans of separate objects that were made individually at different times. So there's a big boulder that I scanned out in Montauk off the coast of Long Island. There's a boulder from like a beach in Sweden when I was on a trip once. There's a scan of an old Macintosh G3 computer that I found on the sidewalk outside my house one day. And I scan all these things and then bring them into a virtual space where I can kind of combine them and configure them in ways that they can have a dialogue with each other in some way. There's also like a frame of a screen leaning against the boulder. So again, we're kind of talking about looking at art through screens, you know. So all these works deal with the idea of screen-based work in some way, but also I think the bigger conversation happening behind a lot of these things is what happens with technology, right? All of this work is referencing e-waste and discarded technology and technology that's obsolete, and thinking about what happens to all this stuff, right? What happens to all this technology once it's no longer served its usefulness, which oftentimes is very short in the technological production cycle. And how does it end up in like these sedimentary stratigraphic layers of the Earth's geological system? So those are the kind of things I'm thinking about when I'm putting together these kind of configurations.
And how do you see it evolving? Because this is your second year of Mesh. So you were one of our first artists in MESHfair 2023. You've created a second installation for MESHfair 2024. How did that work progress, and how do you see this next step for you going forward?
Well, I think that there were some kind of lessons learned from the first MESHfair in terms of sort of how to work with the space in a way that I kind of felt was presenting what I'm trying to do in a way that is legible, and so this time around I thought very little about how the work was going to be presented. I'm working with this kind of baked lighting, simulating sort of an interior gallery environment or something like that, and I'm thinking more about, and then I can just focus really on what is the actual work and what is the relationship between the pieces. In terms of how does it go forward, I don't know. I've been publishing some of these sort of virtual environments as things that you can experience in the browser, just as WebGL pieces on my site. So if you go to my site, there's a few things that are just WebGL environments that you can navigate and explore at your leisure. Not in a game engine at all, just using Babylon.js, if anybody's familiar with that OpenGL platform. And that's an interesting way to, I guess for me, it's an interesting way to experiment with things rapidly in a way that's like really low cost, right? I'm not actually having to fabricate things and find storage for them and exhibit them somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole, other set of responsibilities.
And now you are muted.
Yeah, sorry, Dev, you've just muted. Let me see if
I got it. I think I accidentally tapped the mute button. So there's a whole set of logistics for making physical things, which I have done a lot of in the past, and working digitally, working in a 3D space allows me to still think about sculpture, think about things in the round, while being able to present it virtually, being able to present it in the browser and WebGL, so that people don't have to go to a gallery or museum to get a sense of what I'm thinking and what I'm trying to do.
And did you experience with augmented reality?
I have done some experiments with AR. It's not something I'm like pursuing like actively. Of course, it's very easy to take any of these models and bring them into an AR app and have them in a overlaid in a physical space. That actually may be happening with the exhibit bay that we're doing next month with Object at the space in Denmark. where there will be a lot of pieces that are AR, and the work I'm doing will probably end up being viewable, with a geolocator, such that you can view it in a space.
Yes.
And so it's very easy to translate these sort of 3D objects into like multiple formats in that way. Like it can be in AR, it can be in a WebGL environment, it can be in a 3D render, traditional sort of render, or even like 2D renders and prints. And so there's there's a way to, I guess, I'm trying to find a way to work such that all of these ideas and assets and things can translate through different mediums and can kind of express themselves in different ways while keeping a sort of consistent theme, right?
I think what's surprising for me about your work, Dev, in the two MESHfairs is the sense of weight that your objects have in these environments. It really feels like these are objects that exist as you're walking around this space. It's not something that I've experienced in other installations in Decentraland. I think it's a really unique feel to this. Like the weight of that stone seems to translate into a virtual environment. You can feel that this is an object rather than an installation. I think that's something very striking about this cube.
Thank you. Sorry, I just had to get a cough drop. I'm getting a sore throat. Yeah, I think that was really important to me, is the idea of physicality. These are scans of real things, and I wanted it to read as a real thing, right? And so there's a lot of nuances to how I'm working with the lighting that honestly doesn't really translate to WebGL very easily often. And so I kind of cheated, and I've done what you call baked lighting environment, where I did all the lighting in Cinema 4D, so that you really get that sense of physicality. Things are intersecting, things are casting shadows. Excuse me. And then I baked that lighting down to textures so that I can translate that real world physicality into a space like Decentraland.
It's really effective, and I think that's been the reaction for a lot of experienced builders coming into both your spaces is, oh wow, this is something different with the baked lighting, with the textures, and with, as you say, that real physicality to these GLB objects. So, I would love to bring Sabato and Jane into this cube and to tell me about your experiences as you walked in. Sabato.
Hey, I was just like dancing, like in the corner. I gotta say, I love Dev's work, and like the fidelity of the textures in his pieces are amazing to me. Like the way they look, they look like really good photogrammetry models, but knowing the limitations of like the triangles and how you have to make everything low poly, like the way that it translate as, just like very photorealistically I think is really cool. And I love the projected videos on the corner too. The sand one is really cool too. Yeah.
Can we see the videos a little bit closer? I'm also yeah, I like them also.
And I can tell you just briefly a little bit about the process behind the video work. These are they're animated videos of 3D scans. And in this case, the 3D scan was a process where I literally take like an acrylic cylinder and I fill it up with stuff layer by layer, sand and rocks and rubble and concrete, bits of old sculptures, bits of e-waste, kind of creating these again, referencing a geological theme, and then creating a 3D photogrammetry scan of the cylinder. And of course, the acrylic then disappears in the scan, and you're just left with the contents of the cylinder. And so it's a process I'm working through. I've done a few of these so far. I'm still kind of working out how to present those that in a way that they read, that you can tell really what's going on. But yeah, these are sort of just quick rudimentary animations from these objects.
It's a fascinating process, and I am very conscious that we could spend a lot of time in each of these cubes, but we have got 10 minutes to go until the end of our session. It's gone so quickly. If you're joining us in world right now, we are in Dev Harlan's cube at 6066 in Decentraland Art Week, part of MESHfair 2024. I have with me 3 of the artists that have created the MESHfair Cubes. If you've missed this presentation, you can catch up on the Decentraland LinkedIn. All of these, LinkedIn and YouTube, all of these presentations are being recorded. I'm going to ask you all the questions I've been asking everyone within these tours to kind of bring this together, which is, what's been the one thing that surprised you about your work for MESHfair or your involvement with the process this year? And can we start from the beginning? So Sabato, would you kind of tell me about, is there something that surprised you? What was it in the process for this?
I don't know. I don't know if surprise is the right word. I was just like so pleased with how everything came together. I think it's one of those things that it's like, you know, you're building it, you only see it in parts, but then when you see it in the actual like IRL virtual space or the virtual space, it's like, you know, like it I don't know, it somehow like adds more to it, like the way like the virtual lighting kind of affects your scene too. Like I loved looking at my capybara shelter when it was dark out because all the tones were like muted. Um, but yeah, I don't know. You know, I think it's I was definitely. I mean, I was surprised by the level of just like care and support that you and KJ like and the devs put into just, you know, getting everything together and like getting my audio too at the last minute. That was just like really awesome.
Oh, you're welcome. We
Yeah.
had some audio fixes to do, so apologies that it got slid in. But yeah, just thank you for being part of the process. On the lighting, if you are a new person to Decentraland, you might not know that there is a skybox. So if you click your person at the top and then go to settings, you can actually turn off the dynamic skybox and then see your installation under the various lights of different times of day. So you can see sunsets of your installation. You can see what it looks like at 2 a.m. in the morning. I tend to put it on about 6:20 because it kind of gives you a nice sort of evening golden glow lighting. But you can kind of see all this. And so for some people, that is incredibly frustrating. I come from a classical painting background, and it's like, oh my goodness, I'm hanging my paintings in a nightclub for a lot of the people walking around in Decentraland. But then you sort of get into this thing of that the whole situation that you're creating is dynamic and everyone's seeing it from a different point of view. Particularly if they're Decentraland Power users, they probably have their skybox set on night mode as the standard. So if we do that now, we can see that there's a very different atmosphere now within the cube.
Is night
So
mode
for
like
a
a
lot of
black light?
night mode's like a starry night outside. If we jump out, I'll be able to show you. It's a kind of star with moons and everything goes purple. So
Wow.
if you want your colors to read as true colors within night, you kind of have to add a little bit of emission in Blender. So when we were creating the mesh cubes, we wanted them to read as white in all environments. So we added lighting and did a little bit of emission. So it's all these kind of cool lighting effects that you can kind of dive into and in these virtual worlds. Anne, I wonder if I could bring you in about the element of surprise. What surprised you in this process?
Actually, it was the same what Sabato said with this day and light atmosphere, because I was entering the first time and was, I don't know, I can't remember, it was dark, and then I was checking again and I showed it to Johanna. I was like, hey, now it's day, like, wow. But okay, that's not maybe not that surprising for all of you, but what I really liked was the whole lively experience. Like that is, you really have the feeling to walk through a world, and I think it's perfectly made, and it's such a positive energy, all what you experience, and I like this a lot. I have to say that's of course maybe it's not surprising, but it just as a feedback, like I liked it a lot, and all. Yeah, to figure out all the possibilities. So I think it's really fun, and I think it's so interesting to see what will develop in the next years, you know. And I think it will be for us more or less the new normal to work in both worlds and to have this experience as well, and what this brings to us and to the whole society and to the humans. I think it's interesting to be there. I think now you are muted, babe.
That's my fault. I'm sorry. Yeah, interesting times. These changing times about our relationship with virtual worlds. Jane, how about you?
I think probably the process. Definitely the first couple days, I felt really, really stressed and overwhelmed. I didn't really know what I was in for, and had that whole journey I mentioned, crisis of confidence. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then with everything, that I work on, it's just kind of diving in, being vulnerable, and being not knowing the technology and just messing around and messing up. And I think that the builder in general is very forgiving because you can just edit and delete and move things around and easily edit your stuff. So I think it was a lot easier once you start messing with it for a while than I thought. And yeah, the team was really helpful. And it was really exciting to be able to like make something like this.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear. It's been a pleasure to see how everyone has created these really diverse environments. And just mentioning that, just a massive shout out to the builder team, the online editor team, because when we first jumped in, MESHfair 1 was in SDK 6 in Decentraland, and it had a different builder. SDK 7, we had this new builder. And the first time we logged in, it's like, oh no, there's no bounds, there's no triangle counts, and the team said, okay, great. It's on the roadmap, we'll do it. And so I think from the time MESHfair started until the time we all deployed the cubes, all these different elements got introduced to the builder in real time. So just a huge shout out to all the devs that worked on that and brought it together. It was just this huge effort, and it's great. So thank you to everybody that worked on that on the Decentraland side. Dev, how about you in terms of surprise in this process?
Gosh, well, I will say when I checked out the SDK 7 builder, I was pleasantly surprised at how much better it is than the SDK 6, which definitely feels a little bit clunky now. So that was a pleasant surprise to have a tool that was a lot smoother to work with, and yeah, I was. It made the whole process a lot less stressful for me. Yeah, I mean, in terms of creating for this format, I feel like, again, having done it once before, is like less surprises along the way, but still, it's always a great opportunity to learn kind of little new tricks and techniques and workflows. And definitely, I think I improved what I was doing. I think I improved my process through doing it again.
I'm so glad that you could be part of this again. We're going to be bringing this now to a close. It has been an absolutely fantastic tour in Decentraland with our three artists, Sabato, JaneDAO, and Dev Harlan, and also Anne from Office Impart. And I would love to get your closing perspective on, for you, what has been the most valuable experience in being part of MESHfair?
Can you repeat the question? It wasn't for me. Sorry, I didn't get it.
We talked about surprise. I guess, what's been the most valuable experience for you in terms of MESHfair? You talked about building these bridges. What's next? Like, how do you see this going forward, particularly with your work in the gallery?
I think the most valuable thing is that it works so smooth, actually, because we experience a lot that people who are not coming from the technology world or digital have not so much experience. For them, it's always how to use it, and I think this becomes better and better, and it works on all computers. It works with also low internet, but of course you need good one. But still, and I think the experience is so good and it's so easy to handle that I think it will be it's a huge value, and of course, because if you always take all the time what you have and try to make it work, then you didn't look at the art. So for me, this is what really makes it so good in the MESHfair this year, that you really you have the focus on the arts and not of finding your way, knowing how to use it, and I think this is what is most valuable, that it's really about the arts.
I think that's a great place to close this on, and I hope that we will see MESHfair progressing over the years ahead to really be placing that focus on VR art, on art for spatial environments, and getting this real. I think one of the themes coming through all of these tours, the last 3 tours that we've had, is this real sense of the physical and the digital really being brought together in these installations. Like every single artists that we've talked to so far has really had the sense of bringing in the physical experience, things from the physical world, whether that be in the media that's experienced outside of that world, or we had Bosco Gracias last presentation talking about how they'd scanned a car in Patagonia that had been abandoned in the Patagonian wilds and bringing that into their cube. We've had Capybara Sanctuary today talking about bringing the stories around these animals and the experience of Brazil into a cube. We had Jane talking about these media experiences and these references and bringing these into the virtual world. And then we have Dev with these really physical sculptures that are from objects referencing technology in the real world and bringing these into virtual spaces. It has been an absolute delight to talk with all of you today on these. I hope that you'll be able to join us on next tours. We've got one in 4 hours' time with an incredible group of artists that's going to be, again, diving into 3 different MESHfair Cubes in MESHfair 2024. And just a huge, massive thank you to everyone that's joined us in World online. We've just broken 1,000. It's been absolutely brilliant to be part of this again with Decentraland. And just thank you very much, Anne, Sabato, JaneDAO, and Dev for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Ciao.